Dig into this. Imagine a mother, maybe with her kids, perhaps sleeping in a car tonight.
Or bouncing between friends' couches.
Exactly. Just trying to keep a roof overhead, any roof. And here's a statistic that really, it shifts how we think about who homelessness hits hardest.
It's quite startling.
In some areas, women and children, they're now making up more than half of the homeless population.
It's a number that, frankly, demands attention. A perspective we haven't focused on nearly enough.
For sure. So today we're doing a deep dive into a really important new study. It kind of pulls back the curtain on women's homelessness, their specific housing needs, focusing on southern Ontario's Peel region.
And this insight comes mainly from the No Place of Their Own report. That's by EFry Hope and Help for Women.
Right, and that work was actually funded by a pretty significant grant, $100,000 from the Ontario Trillium Foundation's Resilient Communities Fund.
Yeah.
We also, just for context, looked at some broader market stuff, like from Omaxe Real Estate Inc., to get a handle on the affordability side.
Yeah, and this EFry report, it feels like a game changer because it fills a huge gap.
Mm-hmm.
For so long, the conversation about homelessness often centered on men's experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But this study really spells out why women's experiences are different, why they often get overlooked, and crucially, it proposes concrete solutions, tailored solutions.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. Unpack those differences, those overlooked experiences, and look at the pathways forward. And we have to start with that core finding, the really surprising one.
The 52% figure.
Yeah, in Peel Houghton, women and children making up 52% of people experiencing homelessness.
That's right. And if you break that down, it's 40% women, and that figure actually jumped 5% just in the first few months of 2025.
Wow, a 5% jump. That quickly.
Yeah, and the other 12% are children. So this isn't just a slight shift. It feels like a fundamental change in who's most vulnerable right now.
And the report talks about hidden homelessness. What does that mean? Does it suggest these numbers, as shocking as they are, might actually be low?
It absolutely suggests that. The true scale is likely larger. Hidden homelessness refers to how women, often because of safety fears or wanting to shield their kids, avoid the more visible forms.
So not necessarily in shelters or on the street?
Right. They might be in tents, maybe sleeping in cars, or doing what's called couch surfing, moving between temporary spots with friends or family. It makes them harder to count in traditional ways.
But just as desperate.
Exactly. It's a kind of silent crisis happening behind the scenes.
Okay, so that's the who. What about the why? Why are women's needs so different when it comes to homelessness and housing? Safety seems like a huge piece.
It's paramount. The study found something pretty shocking. Only 2% of shelter beds in Peel are specifically for women.
2%, just 2.
2%. So, understandably, many women avoid co-ed shelters. They just don't feel safe due to, well, very real security risks.
And for women maybe fleeing violence, that's just not an option.
Absolutely not. And compounding that, all the family shelters in the region are co-ed. So you're putting kids in potentially risky situations right from the start.
So safety is one major factor. What else? The economics seem brutal.
Oh, completely. The poverty trap is undeniable.
Yeah.
The report shows over 37% of women in Metro Toronto are living below the poverty line. That's under $30,000 a year.
30,000.
And almost half earn less than $35,000. Now compare that to the low income cutoff. It's about $29,380 for one person, and just over $36,500 for two people, like a mom and kid.
So even working, they're trapped.
Precisely. It's working poverty. A job doesn't guarantee you can escape destitution.
Which flows right into housing affordability, or rather unaffordability. How bad is it? What percentage of income are we talking?
It's staggering. For women earning under $30,000, the average rent for just a one-bedroom apartment, it eats up 68% of their income.
68%, just for rent.
Yeah, and if you're a mother with a child needing a two-bedroom, that jumped to 81%.
81%. There's nothing left. It's completely unsustainable.
Exactly. It's not just hard to afford. It's structurally impossible for many low-income women to find stability. Rent alone makes it impossible.
Okay, so the report looks at current supports. Where are things like, say, housing benefits or subsidized housing falling short for women?
Well, take the Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit, the COHB. It's meant to help, but in Peel, it's just not enough.
Why not?
Because the amount is based on CMHC figures, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, right? But those figures haven't kept up with actual market rents in Peel. There's often a gap of nearly $1,000 a month.
$1,000, so the benefit barely makes a dent.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then you look at subsidized housing. the wait times.
I saw those numbers. They are really something. How long are we talking?
Commonly 13 to 15 years.
15 years
Yeah.
waiting for affordable housing.
Imagine being in crisis today and being told the wait could be over a decade. And adding to that, the report points out that none of the housing projects currently being built are aimed at the deeply poor,
Meaning
those with the lowest incomes, the most desperate need. Instead, new projects target people earning between, say, $61,000 and $110,000 a year.
So they completely miss the people who need help the most.
They miss the mark entirely for this group.
Which really drives home the point about needing different kinds of support. The report says what works for men often doesn't work for women.
Exactly. It's a key distinction. For men experiencing homelessness, supports often focus on things like substance use, maybe social isolation, job skills.
Okay.
But for women, the primary needs identified are quite different. Safety and security are huge, support for trauma and abuse experiences, needs centered around their family, and help with education or job skills.
Recognizing that difference seems absolutely critical then.
It's fundamental. It's not just about being nice, it's about being effective.
So, okay, given all the distinct needs, the system failures, what does the report actually recommend? What are the concrete steps forward? Let's talk financial and system changes first.
One major one is boosting that housing benefit. They recommend creating an enhanced COHB, specifically 150% of the current rate, targeted for women and children leaving shelters.
150%. So a significant increase.
It's a real boost. The idea is to give them a genuine chance to actually afford market rent and stay housed, not just barely scrape by for a month or two.
And thinking bigger picture, systemically.
The report pushes for a regional approach to housing, not just municipal.
Why regional?
To stop people losing their spot on waitlist if they have to move, say, from Mississauga to Brampton, which are both in Peel region. It's a common problem that forces people back to square one.
That makes sense. What about shelters?
A big call is for a dedicated shelter just for women and children. They suggest 40 beds. It directly tackles that safety issue we talk about. A proper safe haven.
And what about the people needed to help navigate all this? The support workers?
Yeah, that's crucial for implementation. The report stresses having dedicated housing placement workers right in shelters that serve women and kids.
Hands-on help?
Direct support finding a place. And it suggests using federal money, the Reaching Home funds, to hire specific family homelessness prevention workers.
To stop families ending up in shelters in the first place.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
And also, for people leaving institutions, maybe prison or treatment or a hospital stay, they recommend community integration housing workers to help them find stable housing right away.
Okay, let's shift to the kids for a second. How does the report address their specific needs, especially around school?
That's vital.
Yeah.
They recommend including family shelters in visiting teacher programs.
So teachers would go to the shelters.
Essentially, yes. To help homeless kids stay connected to their education. School is often the first casualty of homelessness for a child, so this helps maintain some stability, some normalcy, keep them from falling behind.
And finally, data. You can't fix what you don't measure, right?
Exactly. The report really emphasizes conducting an annual regional count, specifically of homeless women and children in shelters.
Why is that specific count so important?
Because consistent, targeted data is foundational. You need it to develop the right strategies to see if what you're doing is actually working and to direct resources effectively. It lets you adapt and improve over time.
So when you connect all these dots, this study, these recommendations, the potential impact on the community, on social equity, it seems huge.
It really underscores that understanding these distinct needs is the absolute first step towards solutions that work.
And you have to credit the organizations doing this work. EFry Hope and Help for Women, you mentioned them earlier?
Yeah, there's a Southern Ontario charity, been around over 50 years, supporting vulnerable women and kids. Their experience really shines through in this report.
And the funding partner, too, the Ontario Trillium Foundation, an agency of the Ontario government.
Right, investing huge amounts, nearly $105 million, into hundreds of community projects just last year. That kind of support enables this crucial research.
It really takes both, doesn't it? The on-the-ground expertise and the resources to make it happen.
Absolutely vital for building healthier communities, especially for those who are most vulnerable.
Okay, so let's recap this deep dive. The core message seems crystal clear.
It is. Women and children are now the majority experiencing homelessness in Peel region.
And their needs are different. They require specific, tailored solutions, which this EFry report lays out in really clear detail.
Which leaves us and you, our listener, with something important to think about. Given these specific detailed recommendations, What responsibility do our communities, our governments have to actually prioritize these changes?
And maybe what role can each of us play? Advocating for a housing system that actually works for everyone, especially the most vulnerable. How might these findings from Peel, you know, resonate or apply where you live?
Because this hidden crisis, it might be closer to home than you think.